Most people, they assume that AI is making us dumber, that it's the end of the days, it's the end of humanity. Well, not really. If you remember, what happened with the calculator and what happened with stuff like Wikipedia, right? I mean, whenever these things came out, uh, everybody was like, "Oh no, it's gonna make us dumber." Guess what? When we got the calculator, we just became better at calculus and stuff, and at algebra, and we were able to just do things quicker. It did not make humans dumber. It just kind of expanded our potential. Now, obviously, AI has the ability to be misused, but so does anything, right? I mean, a child in the third grade or something, or first grade, whatever, can still use a calculator to, not do addition or division, whatever they have to do, that it's like simple 5 plus 5 or like 50 divided by 2, stuff like that. They can just do it with a calculator. That's the same, only with AI. You can use AI in a much higher level. You can use it with stuff beyond 2 plus 2 is 4, right? And that's why people are just freaked. But I think that it is just a great tool to help us kind of bring into a new era now, because it's better than them, right? It's better than Wikipedia, it's better than the calculator, and that's a good thing, right? I mean, we have created a tool that can explain very hard and difficult to understand concepts in seconds, right? I mean, in the old days before AI, if you wanted to learn something, you needed to go on Google, you needed to look through like 10 websites, you needed to look at the sources in those websites. You needed to figure out what is credible, what is not. I mean, I'm talking more about, a purely academic viewpoint. Obviously, the average old Joe here, the trucker, he just looks up online, our vaccine's bad for us. He clicks the first article, or maybe he doesn't, or maybe he has like a specific source, maybe a specific website that he goes to. But essentially, AI has the ability to teach us. It has the ability to give, uh, I would say, verifiable evidence and information in seconds, right? I mean, you don't have to scour 10 websites. You can literally just ask ChatGPT. Now, obviously, ChatGPT can lie and it can be misleading. So, obviously, if you are writing a research paper, if you're making a presentation or something like that, you need to double check it, right? And that's really easy to do, especially on ChatGPT. I'll show it on here on screen. I mean, on ChatGPT, you can literally just check the sources, right? And you can also enable web search. So whenever it gives you information, it searches the web first. Goes through like 10 websites or 30 of them, and that always makes the responses it gives much better. So basically, we have invented a tool. Obviously, it has its flaws. Like, how can we make sure it isn't biased? For example, that's one of the major problems. How do we know that AI is not, left leaning or right leaning or liberal or conservative, or doesn't start kind of indoctrinating people into, for example, voting for a specific party, but that's still a problem we have to solve. It doesn't mean the whole concept of AI is bad. It just means that it has problems, just like anything else, right? Everything has some sort of problem. For example, computers. Like, computers are a great thing, obviously, right? But computers have their problems. First of all, threat to your privacy. Okay, I'm not going to start listing all the problems computers have, because they have problems. But essentially, it is, pros and cons situation. How many pros does it have, and how many cons does it have? Like, if a child wants to learn about photosynthesis, let's say little Jimmy is on summer break. Little Jimmy wants to learn about photosynthesis, for example. And little Jimmy in the old times would have gone to the library, looked up photosynthesis in a book. I mean, this is a very visual thinking, but essentially that information would have been much harder to gain. And some would argue that having to think to kind of gain this information is a beneficiary, because you're forced to use your mind and brain in order to learn how to kind of access this information. But I think that essentially that is a kind of unnecessary complication that obviously I think we should be more focusing on, like figuring out like so that the kid figures out what photosynthesis is instead of being able to figure out how to access that information, right? So essentially, a and now little Jimmy, he literally asked ChatGPT, okay, explain to me what is photosynthesis. Also, generate an image showing me how it works, perhaps, or link a YouTube video, right? And now little Jimmy gets a whole paragraph or couple sentences if he asks for them, right, about photosynthesis. And he can learn. And right now I'm about to make the best kind of mention something that is the sole kind of I would say differentiator with AI and conventional information. You can ask AI follow up questions, right? You can, like, if he doesn't understand, let's say, how do the cells do that, right? I mean, okay, the cells convert sunlight into energy or something like that, whatever. I'm not, or a carbon dioxide into oxygen. How do they do that? Right? How is that possible? And the AI will literally just give that information. Like you can ask it follow up questions, and it will completely answer them. Right? And you can ask like 50 questions. I mean, it's free. So that's kind of the biggest difference between the two. Basically, we have invented a tool that is essentially a teacher in a pocket. I mean, literally, it's so crazy because this is the first time that can have a PhD educated, a very highly educated professor in your pocket. You know, so this is just something that obviously can be misused, and it's something that is misused. I mean, in schools, many people are complaining about, the thing that everybody's cheating. And as a modern student, I can say that I have used ChatGPT, right? But I think that everything can be misused. I mean, like, let's say, for example, drugs, right? Right now I'm watching House on Netflix. I'm like third season, whatever. And House is kind of addicted to Vicodin. Now, what is Vicodin? Now, Vicodin is a pain relief drug that uses I forgot what were they called, like amphiates? No. Let's see. I'm gonna search it up real quickly. Da, 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 da. Opioids. It contains opioids, which are very complex chemicals that release do stuff in the brain basically where you're like on a high, right? Now, and that got me thinking. I mean, it is we use drugs in medicine to cure people, to help them, but those same drugs can be used illy, for ill things. For example, drug users, they use drugs to just get a high, but at the same time with drugs you can cure or at least alleviate the pain of a suffering child, right? I think AI is very much the same way. Obviously not as bad, but we run the risk of being dependent on it, like many people are. But obviously, it takes a bit of self control, in so that you don't become dependent on it, right? And that is kind of the thing people fear most, is that people are becoming dependent on it. And I have found myself also being a bit dependent on AI, and then I just took a step back and I started, also researching things conventionally, and stuff like that. So obviously, it has negatives. AI does have negatives, but again, I already said this: positives outweigh the negatives, right? So yeah, so that's kind of my main points about why AI is not making us dumb or why it's not as big of a problem. Because I think essentially what will happen is that, for example, in schools, right, there are times in schools, right, where the exam is so hard to cheat on, right? Where basically, if you pull out your phone, you lose like you get it in an You pull out your phone, and a teacher, you get caught, and instantly you get a one, where you failed the thing, right? And some teachers are very strict about that. Some teachers are not. So I think essentially a great motivator would just be that tests and stuff like that are just impossible to cheat on. And in turn, people would be more, I would not say forced, basically forced to learn things on their own because it's just easier to use your brain and remember what the fuck is the trigonometric fucking functions or something, right? Rather than try and cheat. And I have found this I've found this in myself. Sometimes it's just easier to use your brain, your noggin, than to stress out about cheating. So yeah. So I think that I already said everything, and that's just kind of my take on AI. Right. In the future, I think it will just be like the calculator. If it doesn't become sentient or something. Which even if it does, I mean, you can still use the 3.5 or 4.0 model for basic tasks. So plus, it's an LLM, so I don't know how sentience would happen in that thing. I mean, it's just a good word predictor. So yeah. So I think that AI is not as big of a problem as people say it is. And yeah, if you enjoyed the video, if any of what I said makes sense, or then leave a like, subscribe. I mean, please subscribe. Goddamn, we are so close to 200 subscribers, man. I really need the subs. I need the views, man. I need to get the monetization, please, guys, please. And yeah, if you enjoyed, by the way, leave your thoughts in the comments. I always love to discuss these things with people because a lot of people offer some truly unique and introspective views. So, and I always love kind of talking about them. And I'm open to other viewpoints. I know a lot of people, they are very dismissive of what others think, and I'll say it, to be honest. I think a lot of people don't know what they're talking about. I mean, I don't really know what I'm talking about. Okay, I'm like a teenager. I'm not a expert in anything, but I'm just saying that I'm open to other viewpoints. I mean, as long as you're not like, disrespectful stuff like that. If you're not really pushing your viewpoints on others, tell me in the comments. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed. Like it if you liked it. Dislike it if you dislike it. And goodbye.